Hello, I'm Daniel, and welcome to the Emunah Project. We here at the Emunah Project are continuing in our series of videos with respect to inspiration, education, and explanation. And one of the things we want to talk about this morning is the idea of prayer as an opportunity to ask the Creator for things. I think in the popular imagination there's this idea, there's this concept that praying is basically just asking God for things, like a shopping list. Like, oh, I want money, I want a nice job, I want a relationship, I want my relationship to work out, I hope my kids don't get sick, please this, please that, God do this, God do that. I'm not saying you shouldn't ask God for things. That's perfectly legitimate. There's nothing wrong with that. There's everything right with that. But if you reduce prayer only to telling God what you want, it's, in my view, wrong-headed. And here's why. A bunch of reasons. First of all, if that's your idea of communicating with God, God's not telling you what to do. You're telling God what to do. You're reversing the roles. The purpose of prayer, I would suggest, is to connect with the Creator, build and strengthen that connection in order to help you be a better person. Now, you can ask for guidance, you can ask for strength, you can ask for courage, insight, and, that sort of thing. But to say, oh, please God, I want to win $70 million in a lottery, you can do that, but don't be surprised if you don't win $70 million in a lottery. Ask for something that's simple, that's real, that's doable. Ask to improve your own qualities, your own personality. If you're struggling in a relationship, ask for whatever insight or sensitivity to figure out what the problem is and maybe work on it to improve yourself and to improve the situation. If you're having financial difficulties, ask maybe for a new job, a better job. How can I improve my situation? If you're gonna ask, be smart. And realize that God is not some kind of heavenly Santa Claus. That's not the purpose of prayer. I'm sure a lot of people think that it is, but if you're going to take your religious life seriously, I think you need a deeper and more profound explanation from that. Talk about asking for things. I'm reminded of two stories. The first one has to do, it's a story about Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon was after a stunning victory. He invited all the top officers to his tent, to his place. Gave him wine, champagne, whiskey, brandy, Armagnac, and he says, I'll grant you a wish. What do you want? Immediately, one jumps up. I want freedom for the Ukraine. Napoleon says, you got it. The other one says, I want freedom for Arabia. You got it. I want this, I want that, all these wonderful Slovenia, I want all these wonderful things. You got it. There was a Jewish officer, and he says, what do you want? What can I give you? What is your heart's desire? And the Jewish officer thought for a second, and he says, I would like 2 bagels with cream cheese and some lox. Napoleon snaps his fingers. Before he knows it, there's the plate, 2 bagels, cream cheese, lox. Napoleon, see you around, guys, have a nice day, jumps on his horse, rides off. And the other officers are stunned. He says, you could have asked for anything. You could have asked for power. You could have asked for riches. You could have asked for patriotic things, freedom of suffering for the Jewish people. Bagels and lox? Seriously? And the officer nodded. He picked up the bagel and he says, well, at least I got what I asked for. Sometimes people ask, and sometimes people don't get. Another more famous story of asking was just before the destruction of Jerusalem. A great sage, one of the greatest of that generation, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. There was struggling during the siege. There was struggling and fighting in Jerusalem among the various Jewish sects. In order to get out, Yochanan ben Zakkai faked his own death, had his students, carry out the corpse, and then when he was outside the walls, jumped out and he ran to Vespasian, the general. Goes to the general and says, Ave Cesare, hail Caesar. And Vespasian looks at him. He says, I should have you put to death for what you just said. I'm not the emperor. I'm merely one of his generals. How dare you presume like this? He says, you must be the emperor because God has delivered Jerusalem into your hand. As they were talking, a messenger from Rome shows up. The Emperor Nero had died, and Vespasian was, in fact, the new emperor. And Yochanan ben Zakkai saying, see, God has delivered Jerusalem into your hand. Vespasian says to Yochanan ben Zakkai, Raman Yochanan ben Zakkai, I will grant you your wish. Yochanan ben Zakkai says, well, I got like a threefold wish. Spare the city of Yavne. Spare it. Don't destroy it like you're going to destroy Jerusalem. Allow the Sanhedrin to set up there. And allow me to establish a yeshiva for my students and for other students who wish to learn Torah. Vespasian says, great, done. Later sages in the Talmud have criticized Yochanan ben Zakkai. And they says, why? He gave you anything you wanted. Why didn't you ask him to spare Jerusalem? I mean, this is your opportunity. Yochanan ben Zakkai says, well, first of all, I had foreseen that God had already delivered Jerusalem into his hands, and I wanted to ask for something that I thought he was going to give me. If I asked for something that outlandish, there was just as easy a chance that he would kill me. So I asked for what I could get. Use these two stories whenever you're asking God for things. Again, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying you shouldn't ask for God. I'm saying the primary purpose of prayer is not to present God with a wish list. Build a connection with the Creator. Strengthen that connection. Ask for strength and guidance and inspiration and insight and wisdom. Help him get God's help to learn Torah. While you're up, you say, wouldn't it be nice if my car didn't die tomorrow? But that's a side issue. Don't make that the focus. The focus should be on you, your relationship with God, building and strengthening that relationship. We're going to be doing more videos along this line. Until next time, on behalf of the Emunah Project, I'm Daniel, and thank you so much.